Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another distraction from the real world episode of the Missing Wolves post-game podcast live stream thing. Still a little hectic in Minneapolis, so hopefully this gives some people at least 30 to 40 minutes of just what it is, a distraction. But we do have some basketball to talk about. Wolves go out there and decide to beat Milwaukee by 33 points without Ant and Rudy Gobert. And I thought, we need someone from Canis Hoopus to talk to about it. And Benny Hughes joining the show again. How's it going, man? Long time no talk.
I know, yeah, it's going great, dude. Yeah, we're just enjoying more of the season. I think the last one that I was on was it was like a Dallas game in October or November, and they kicked some butt that time too. So I was like, all right, I guess like every time I'm on, we're gonna have a big blowout. So that's fine by me.
Well, and it's one of those things where I'll be honest, like I forgot how boring blowouts are. Like midway through the second quarter, my attention span turned into probably that of my dogs.
Yep.
And I was just like anything to distract me from boring basketball. But Wolves went out there and did it. Again, 33-point win over Milwaukee in Milwaukee. Giannis played. Ant and Rudy Gobert were both out. I mean, I guess I'll just start off. What was your main takeaway? What do you feel like went most right for this team tonight?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could start off just like at the very beginning of the game, with just like Randall and Jade McDaniels. I feel like that was kind of the starting point, and just the ability of Randall. It seems like every time that Ant has had to miss games, which has been more this year than in years past, just like his ability to kind of take on a little bit more has been really cool to watch. Like that's exactly what you want out of a second option, right? Like is to defer when needed, but and when that guy's out, like that's your time to shine. So that was really cool to see. What do you have? 29, 8 and 6. Like that's gonna win you the game a lot of the time. And just to also see him defensively kind of carry that stuff over from Wemby in the fourth quarter and using that physicality against Giannis. I did not think it was going to work as well as it did. Because Giannis is definitely a step up in terms of the strength department there. But that was also really cool to see, and just to see that he has that in his bag too. And then Jaden just coming out again, first quarter, 4 of 4 from 3, 5 of 5 overall, 14, I guess, right away. And then, like we kind of talked about right before we went on, not a whole lot else going on. So that was kind of just initial, like, popped right away, and obviously that it's when they got up big early and they kept it rolling. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things this team kind of talks about a lot is they need to start faster. They need to just play better right off the rip. And this is what happens when they do. Like, they are so talented that they can just kind of put teams away. I mean, for me, it was the ball movement, like 12 assists on 15 shots. That's almost unheard of for this Wolves team. I think on the season, their assist percentage is like 60 to 65, somewhere in there. And like just how willing everyone was to share it. Not to say that like Ant is a ball hog or Rudy is a ball hog, but like it just seemed like everybody understood that like if we're going to beat this team, we got to pass the ball, pass it quickly, make good decisions. And I mean, the other kind of headline, I guess, coming out of the game is just we finally saw Johan.
Mm-hmm. What? Oh, we saw him.
I get into the stats and everything of it, but just like how much did that kid pop off the screen for you?
Man, no, it was like, I mean, just jaw dropping, honestly. I mean, you knew he was a freak athlete and you knew he was really raw. I feel like that's kind of what we knew about him. If you were really, really invested, obviously saw him a little bit in Iowa. He was kind of balling out down there, which is really awesome to see too. But you always wanted to see, like, especially now, like how much of that can translate at 19 years old. Obviously, you're not expecting to come out and, blow the house down, but you want to see some stuff. And you saw that tonight, which was really, really awesome. It was really cool to see. And I don't know, I feel like I would have to look up. I'm going to do that maybe a little bit later tonight. But I think if you look up, not comparing the two, don't clip this for the record. But if you look up like 2014 Giannis, I feel like that there is a lot of similarities in terms of the athletic ability and just kind of how they looked at that age. But yeah, he just popped off the screen. I thought in the third quarter when we probably felt a little bit too worried about a 20-point lead, he was kind of the one that like got a couple offensive rebounds, got a few extra possessions. Just like not anything like, super crazy of big dunks or anything like that, but just like little stuff that kind of pushed the lead back up to closer to 30. And I just thought that was like really impactful and really cool. So.
Yeah, I mean, stat line 13 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. 4 of those rebounds were offensive. Also, I think he had a steal in there. I think we also kind of saw the downside of Johan. He plays, not a ton of minutes, 29 minutes, 4 fouls, and they were all kind of ticky-tack weird fouls. I want to say he had 3 fouls before they gave him like the last 10 minutes in garbage time. So like there is that kind of weird. You can tell he jumps at everything. You can tell he's raw. He doesn't really know where to put his hands a lot of time. That being said, he did have like a roll around on the ground jump ball that was like particularly endearing. And then he won his own jump ball, which was also like, okay, this is nice. End hate is spamming start Joe Ingles, including start Joe. Here's the thing. I wrote a feature on Joe last week. I'm a big Joe guy. I wouldn't mind if Joe got a couple minutes now and then. Like, he's still fine. I'm a big Joe guy. But yeah, back on Johan, I just thought, to your point, like when they drafted him, there was kind of the jokes of like he's going to be French Giannis and Rocco is going to be Australian Jokic.
Right, the big two, man.
Like it is kind of uncanny just how athletic he is and how, even though he doesn't really speak the language yet, even though he doesn't really know what he's doing yet, he's just in the right spots a lot. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And just like, I mean, that was the other part I feel like we heard about right after he got drafted, is that he catches everything. Like you saw that tonight. And there was like a lot of like smooth finishing. I mean, he had I think there was like a reverse right on Giannis kind of in the first half. And he had a couple other that was like, maybe not like reverse, but catch it on the left side, finish on the right or something like that, which is like, that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And so that was just kind of cool to see too. If some of that was like, okay, that looked fluid. The catch into the finish looked fluid. It looked good. And obviously, needs a lot of polishing, but that's kind of all you can ask for right now, I feel like. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think his only missed shot was that weird push shot that he took in the third quarter. But like other than that, he was excellent. Like you said, he catches everything, which I feel like, that is an actual positive attribute when you're watching Rudy Gobert 80 games a year. Rudy's been better this year, but I think that's encouraging. I mean, I guess my next question is just like, do you think this is something that can be put back in the bottle? Like, do you think now that we've seen a 29-minute Johan performance and he was able to be relatively successful against Giannis, Bobby Portis, like some of the bigger guys on this team, like, do you think that he's someone that should maybe get at least a sniff at the rotation?
I mean, yeah, like I think that it could be situational, and I feel like Finch always talks about that, especially with young guys, of like, hey, like you might get this role on this night because it's a really good matchup for you. I remember that being talked about a lot last year with like Jalen Clark. Whenever we would play the Suns, that would be a thing because they had a lot of perimeter guys. So just kind of going off of that, like obviously it's going to be tough when you have 3 really, really good bigs, and the unfortunate thing is that the 4 and the 5, the front court, there's only 2 positions. In the back court, there's 3. So there's just naturally less minutes available. And then especially when you have those 3 guys that are deserving of close-ish to 30 minutes, like it may get a little tough to finagle, but like I don't see why he couldn't just come in on any given night, play 10 to 15 minutes, provide at least a snippet of what Rudy provides at the rim and just some offensive stuff. As well. I don't know if you can really put it back in the box at this point,
Yeah, I mean, pack mentality says yes, throw him in when we play the Rockets next. Like, it is one of those things where I think, Finch has talked about it before, where like out of a young player, you kind of expect 1 good game, 1 rotten game, and 1 below average game. And then as they get better, you'll get a rotten, a good, and an average. And then that rotten one will get a little bit better. And like, I'm sure we will see a bad Johan game if he continues to play, but he just brings something different, whether it's, Cole adds, especially when guys don't have the right energy. That's what I was going to say. Like, he just brings energy. He's a very serious kid. I still remember in summer league asking him what he likes to do outside of the basketball court. And he just kind of like sat and looked at me for like 10 seconds, then was like, pretty much just basketball. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's what I want to hear. But like I do think that it's almost inevitable to try him now, especially if the Wolves are looking to get a backup big, because if you can just slide Johan in there, it fixes a lot of problems. Another guy I wanted to talk about tonight is just Bones Highland, which I mean, this might have been his best game in a Wolves uniform. What are your thoughts on Bones tonight?
I mean, yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better one. But it was just like, I mean, it was cool to see. I mean, what I wrote down was like they played like a team like that had nothing to lose, that knew like two of their top guys were out. And I think Bones kind of took that mentality to heart of like, I've got extra shots out here tonight. I'm taking them and I'm going to shoot it with confidence. Like there's not, I don't have to give it up, you know, and that's the perfect mentality to have. I think that they move the ball really well, but when he's given that pop off the bench, especially when you move Nas into the starting lineup, he's the one off the bench that you're looking to kind of fill it up a little bit. And he did that tonight. And I, as I'm sure everybody else did, I was doing this a lot at my TV tonight as he made five of them. So, but yeah, it was just really cool to see, like, took advantage of the opportunity. For some reason, they were leaving him open. I know he kind of had like an up and down stretch the last couple of weeks. You know, he had a couple rough shooting nights, but it was just cool to see him get back on the right track and just show like, hey, I can still provide this, especially when we're down some guys. I can pick up a little bit more slack, which again, it's exactly what you want, of a little boost off the bench, you know.
Yeah, I mean, 5 of 7 from 3, 23 points, 5 assists, no turnovers. Like he was good. What are kind of your thoughts on Bones? Like, do you feel like he's going to be a playoff rotation guy, or where are you kind of sitting on him at this point?
Yeah, it's fascinating to me because I don't know. I still remember all those reports of like us wanting to deal Nas Reed for him, you know, all those years ago. So it's just kind of like I have to reorient my brain of like Bones Highland and who he is this year, right? But yeah, I kind of go back and forth on that, honestly. I mean, you've seen the really good parts of Bones and you've seen the really bad ones. And obviously he's big, so that makes up for some of the, you know, maybe the defensive kind of challenges that he can have at times. But I don't know. I think that he could be in a playoff rotation. But I think that you might have to have a little bit shorter of a leash on him, because if he's off on that given night, I think that could really sink you if you throw him in the second quarter and he misses his first 3 threes. I think that's really tough. And obviously that's like, you can say that for any bench guy, but I think him specifically, of like, that's why you're putting him out there, is to give you a little bit of a scoring boost. And if he doesn't have that, I think that it could be a little bit detrimental. But I mean, I could very well see him throwing him out there in a given playoff game, him giving you 18 minutes and scoring 10 points too. So it's cool to have those microwave scorers too, to be like, hey, let's see if you do have it tonight, and give you a little runway, especially if you need that in that given game, especially in the playoffs, when offense obviously dries up a little bit more. And if Ant's out of the game, obviously he's playing more in the playoffs, but when he's out of the game, you're kind of looking around like, okay, who's going to pick up the slack here? And he's definitely a candidate for that, which I don't think any of us would have said at the start of the season. So that's a cool development as well.
Yeah, to me, Bones is kind of in that, like, I don't know if you agree with me, but when I'm looking at like their rotation going into the playoffs, like, I think, you know, all the starters are going to get 35 to 40 minutes. Nas is going to get 30. And then you probably have like 15 minutes left over. And Mike probably gets 8. And then Bones or Jalen gets the other 7 if there's no foul trouble. And it to me just kind of is a luxury for Finch, where he can throw both of them out there in the second quarter, and whichever one plays better, you just go with. I mean, how are you feeling about this team's like top 8.5, 9 right now? Like, do you feel like TJ is going to sneak back in? I obviously, like a game like this, you know, everything goes right, and it's like, well, Bones is never going to lose his job. But like, we still do have TJ on the roster. We still have, as End Hate says, Joe Ingles. Rob also still exists. Do you feel like this roster is kind of getting set though, or do you feel like there's still some moving pieces that need to get figured out?
I think there is still some moving pieces that need to get figured out, because I think that we can sit here and be like, all right, we have 6 bona fide guys, and that's the 6 that you talked about. And obviously they're going to play a lot of minutes, and there's going to be not a lot of minutes left over. But I think that you can legitimately sit here and be like, all right, we got our 6. Now we're looking for 2 or 3 more. And Bones is obviously in that conversation, Mike Conley and Jalen Clark. I think that's what I'm framing my beliefs around, at least come playoff time. Those are the 9 guys that I'm thinking about. And obviously it's nice because all those guys give you different things and you can kind of plug and play as needed depending on the matchup, depending on the game. And so I do think that there is room for adding another person to that, and obviously that could come up, and we can talk about that as well for as the trade deadline comes near. And I do think that they will add another person, but I do think that the 6 bona fide guys, they're going to play a lot, and then after that, it's again like kind of which button you want to press and which button is working on that given night. And so that's where I think that there could be a little bit of wiggle room for adding somebody else to the room. In terms of TJ, it's just like, that's tough, man. You know, like second foot injury when he played, obviously it wasn't just, at least the net rating would say that it wasn't just bad. It was like really, really bad. And I still do hold out belief.
He was essentially the worst player in the league before the injuries. Like it was about as bad as you can be.
Right. Yeah. And so, maybe I'm being a little bit prisoner of the moment of leaving him out and just being like, oh, he's hurt right now, out of sight, out of mind, which is maybe unfair to him. And I do think that he has a skill set that does translate well to the playoffs. And as you saw last year, especially against OKC, like he came in and he played extremely well in a few games. So, again, maybe I'm being a little bit, nearsighted and saying that, I'm not really kind of factoring him in. But it's just interesting because like you said, like essentially worst player in the league in terms of net rating. And, the eye test, I would say at least somewhat matched that. Maybe it was a little bit better, but it wasn't like, no, that doesn't match at all. And so, I think you just kind of have to see how he comes back from injury because I think like we had talked about that. I think the first time around, he was just coming off the first foot injury and he was pretty close to coming back. And I think I remember saying of like, that's his NBA thing, right? Is that strong first step. And if your foot isn't 100% and you can't push off of that, like he usually can, then it gets a little bit tough and it gets a little hard to envision that him being impactful, especially come playoff time.
Yeah. I mean, I can say like I think the team is still really high on TJ. I don't know about Rob. Like we haven't really had a practice scrum where, but pregame, if you ask like, is Rob going to play tonight? Finch might just, throw that Gatorade bottle that's been sitting there for 6 months at us. But like at a practice, you can kind of ask more of those questions of like, hey, like what's going on with Rob? Like, is he just kind of struggling or what's, and we haven't really had that in a while. So I'm not sure where they're at with Rob, but at least optically, like on a game like tonight where Ant doesn't play, for him not to get a single meaningful minute, I think is telling. I mean, Cole might be the conspiracy theory winner here of just TJ and Rob going to the Bulls. It would surprise me a little bit if they let go of TJ because I do think they feel confident with him. I think he's earned some trust, but Rob, I just think is probably the guy moving out if they make a trade. What do you think, Benny?
Sorry, you're talking about Rob. I was reading his note. You say Rob or TJ in terms of moving out.
Yeah, I'm kind of taking the like TJ they like quite a bit still, but I think Rob is probably the guy that gets moved.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like if there a trade does come through and it's more than just, like adding a guy who does not make very much at all. I would be shocked if it was TJ over Rob. And I would say like, if I was to pick right now on what day is today, January 13th, if I was to say, all right, which guy's getting traded on the Wolves? If I had to pick it, I'd probably say Rob Dillingham is the greatest candidate for that. So,
which also makes sense. Like I do think, we don't have to rehash the whole Rob thing, but like, he's just not ready to be a backup point guard on a Western Conference Finals team. Like I think when the Wolves drafted him, they had hoped that he would catch up a little bit faster, but he probably just needs a different change of scenery. What I will say is for Wolves fans that are going to immediately have trader's remorse, like if that dude gets traded to Utah and is playing 30 minutes a night, Rob's going to put up points and woof, right? Like that's going to be tough to swallow, but I will just remind Wolves fans that like always check how many shot attempts he had and how many turnovers, because I think that guy's going to score a lot, but it's not going to be pretty for wherever he goes. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that in terms of like at this point, it does seem like it is trending in that direction, and never say never. I mean, I will still be cheering for him for as long as he is on the team, and I do see the talent there, but it could just be a thing of like he just needs to go somewhere where he can kind of play through it. I feel like to a much lesser extent, you kind of saw that with like Josh Minot, right? Like,
yep.
You got a little bit of a role, and again, second round pick, so very different in terms of their value or perceived value. But he's in Boston now, and he may not play every night, but he has more of an established role there, and he's had some great games this year. And so it's kind of the same thing where if Rob goes to maybe a worse team than Minnesota, you could see him putting up those numbers, kind of playing through it and finding his way. Which may be best for both sides because he was drafted thinking that he was going to have a role, and then the cat trade goes down, and that role kind of was filled, honestly. So, which is a bummer for him, but that's how it was. That's how it went. And yeah, I would cheer for him for wherever he goes if he does end up getting traded as well. So.
Yeah, it is important to remember that like he gets drafted and he was going to be like the guy with Nikhil off the bench in the backcourt. And then you get Dante and Rob's role immediately vanishes. Nikhil plays awesome and it's just over. This year, I mean, it seemed like they really wanted to give him a chance to kind of take Mike's job. And it just, whether it was summer league, preseason, early in the season, the same problems just kept kind of rearing their head. Let's talk trade though. I'm gonna throw us over to a couple ad reads here, and then we'll kind of get into it because Cole brings up, let's just be realistic. Like Rob Lenny in a second round pick is probably the trade that makes the most sense to go out. That gets you to about, if my Centennial high school math is doing me justice, that gets you to about 9 million. So you could probably, I think they're just first apron locked, so you could take 10.5 back. That's probably the area of dude we're looking at, but let's break that down after we at least get a couple ads in.
Let's do it.
Well, hello. Thank you, Livestream Andrew. This is Ad Read Andrew. And today we have Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, the presenting sponsor for the Missing Links podcast. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling strives to inspire people to follow their ideas, working with respect and understanding to create a quality, tailored result. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, located in Blaine and serving in the North Metro area, is here to help you with your building and remodeling needs. I can say personally, thanks to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, I have a beautiful deck in my backyard and countless projects that I started, they finished. Get started on your new deck or remodel today by calling Isaac at 763-710-5686. And we're back with another ad read, this time for Pence Homes, the presenting sponsor of Hitting the Hardwood Network. From the best tools and technology to transparency throughout the entire process, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes team is the top choice for buyers, sellers, and is proud to support you and your home ownership goals. Get started today by calling 612-308-1122 or by emailing info@pencehomes.com. Couple housekeeping things before we get going here. Firehawk Construction does have a new phone number. It is 651-315-4291. Again, that's 651-315-4291. They do house calls where we are currently enjoying a heat wave here in Minneapolis, which means pipes will thaw. And then it's going to get bitter cold again at some point, and those pipes will freeze. If one of those bursts, Isaac over at Firehawk Construction and his team are always happy to at least get the emergency part of that fixed for you and help you dry your basement like they did for me. Also on Nate Pence, he is currently doing a food drive for the Minneapolis and suburban areas. As long as, kind of the unrest in the city is going on, Nate Pence is collecting cash, money, Venmo, Cash App, canned goods, boxed goods, and delivering food to people that maybe aren't able to get to work during this time, or maybe having some of their benefits cut. For any of that info, you can find Pence Homes over on Instagram. You can find my post over on X that kind of tells you where to go for that, or you can just email that info at Pence Homes and say that you wanted to help. I believe the last time I talked to them, they had raised over $15,000 already, and they are just trucking food out all day. So if you want to make a difference and you don't know how, I can say and vouch for the guy that he's really trying to help the community, at least during this time. Okay, Benny. So on to a less stressing topic, trade deadline. Wolves back. Stack says, think we still need a backup big. He adds no afterwards. And Pack Mentality says, do you think they're going to sign anyone before the deadline? I'll kind of pose it to you. Like, what do you think they're going to do at the deadline?
Yeah, kind of like I guess I alluded to this slightly earlier, but I do think that they're going to make a move because they do have money under the second apron to do so, and I feel like that every team kind of in this situation, even if you remember 2 years ago, like the Monte Morris deal, they usually make some kind of move. So I actually did pull up. You said we can get to 10.5 million. I do have the list.
I do too.
Okay, we got the same one. You got the Basketball Reference one. Okay, we can actually go through names if you actually do want to do that and kind of figure it out. But I think in terms of archetype of player that I'm thinking about, if you want to just kind of start there, I would say like I feel like all the talk has been kind of backup point guard, backup big, right? I feel like I've heard that kind of those two, and then scoring wing is kind of in the last one. I feel like that I've heard kind of out there in the ether.
Yep.
I'm going for the scorer, actually. That's kind of what I've determined, because I think that you can get enough from Bones to have that backup point guard, and Mike Conley, of course. You can get up enough from both of them kind of pushed together to do that. And I think that if Rudy Gobert's offensive leap is real and you can play him closer to 40 minutes than to 30, I think that kind of solves the backup big in of itself. In terms of, okay, we only have to survive closer to 10 minutes rather than 20 or 18 without Rudy Gobert or a true center rim deterrent on the floor. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, I think that they need a little bit more of a bona fide scoring option off the bench. And probably some of the guys I'm going to bring up that I say that I like are not exactly going to fit that bill, but that's kind of where my stream is, at least initially, when I'm just saying, okay, this is kind of the archetype that I'm thinking of, but definitely could be swayed one direction or another as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, Cole mentions Doogie. I think it must have been over on Score North, brought up Ao Dosunmu and Kyle Anderson as potential trade deadline guys. What do we think? Kyle fits in that salary slot. So I think Kyle's very, very, they still talk about him weekly. I mean, that guy would come into the locker room and it would be like he never left. Ao, I'm not so sure on. Like, he's had kind of a bouncy up and down career. Like, I'll be like honest, I'm not watching a lot of backup wing play from the Bulls, so I don't really know how well he would fit here, other than like, I just know he's been, as someone who collects basketball cards and resells them, Ao has not been the person you want to get in Chicago Bulls breaks. So maybe he could come here and kind of kickstart his career like Rob could if he went to Chicago. But Benny, I'm curious of your list. Like, who's popping out to you in that,
just
$8 to $11 million range?
In that range, yeah, for sure. I think at the upper end, TJ McConnell is, and he kind of fit that scoring one. Obviously, he's under contract for the next few years, so Indiana might want to keep him for when they're probably better next year. But that's the first one that kind of pops out to me. I think we all saw his impact down the stretch last year and in the playoffs of, just the barrage of mid-range jumpers that would just seemingly touch just the bottom of the net. So I think we all have fond memories of that. Definitely Kyle Anderson and Ayo Dosunmu were kind of on my list. Dosunmu, I'm kind of I'm in the same boat where I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued especially because he's a large guard that is at least a reasonably good defender, probably less so in that scoring bank, at least in terms of you're not expecting Ayo Dosunmu to come off the bench a lot of the time and just fill it up, right? Like, not that he can't score, but yeah. And then let's see. I'm trying to scroll down my list and see if I can find anyone Anyone else on here? Najee Marshall. That one kind of interests me a little bit, I would
Yeah.
say. If Dallas kind of pivot off of that, he's making $9 million this year under contract for this year and next. But just kind of a versatile wing.
Giannis brings up Jarris Walker. Does that do anything for you?
I think that one's interesting because I did love Jarris Walker coming out of Houston, and I do still believe in the upside there. I think that if we're gonna make a move, it's gonna be more of like, okay, this is a bona fide guy that we could play in the playoffs this season. And I honestly don't know if Jarris Walker is that. And again, not that I don't like Jarris Walker and I wouldn't love to have him on the Wolves, but I think that the move would be more kind of not necessarily nearsighted in terms of like he's just on the team for this year and not at any time in the future. But I think if they're going to make a move, it would just be for like more of a bona fide one this season. So,
yeah, I know Yannick brought up a couple, maybe it was last stream even, but like, Philadelphia, you have Quentin Grimes over there kind of in that range. Kelly Oubre is also kind of in that range, like probably fits the mold of just a gunner that comes in to get buckets. Yep. I think both of those guys are probably far enough in their career where they're not, pissed if they're only playing 8 minutes a night as opposed to 30, as long as it's on a good team. I mean, my dream would be just go full Utah Jazz if you're going on the wing and just get Royce O'Neal back. Like, let's just bring in Rolls Royce here and just get the full band back together. We can do a Mike Conley, Joe Ingles, Royce O'Neal, Johnny Juzang, Rudy Gobert lineup. And there we go.
Don't worry, Cole. I'm not going to say Trey Jones. I saw him and Tyus on here, and I was going to explicitly not bring either of them up, just for the record. All right, so do you think that there's any chance that Kyle Anderson gets bought out?
I think there's a very good chance that Kyle Anderson gets bought out. I think, I think Kyle, if he didn't, like if Kyle just went from the Wolves to the Warriors and stayed there all 3 years, I think his value would be really good because he needs like a good system around him. Sure. And I think bouncing, where did he go? Miami, and then he went to Utah, I think it was.
Yeah, because he was a part of the Norm Powell trade, I think, right? Because that was a 3-way because John Collins went to the Clippers.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's how Love ended up in Utah, I think, too.
Yes. So it's just one of those like really weird, like I don't know what his value is. I think like the Wolves look at him and go like, that guy would be perfect. Like he's a very smart player. He plays good defense, can rebound. He's not like going to get slower. Like he's already like very sound because he's like positioning and foot speed, not necessarily like straight line. So I think the Wolves look at him and are probably like, this guy is awesome. I don't know what the rest of the league thinks of like a 30-something-year-old, very slow point forward. But I do think, Cole says he would definitely want to come back. He's a difference maker. Like, I do think that's kind of the moral of the story is I think Kyle would love to come back and play for Finch and play for these guys, which if he gets bought out there's one problem solved. Sign Kyle to a veteran minimum and you can still get that trade. Maybe get that Oubre, Quentin Grimes, DeSumo. The other thing that's really hard when you're like looking at who's like available to trade, the people that are going to be interested in a Rob Dillingham are probably bad teams, right? Like you're not gonna get like Buddy Hield from Golden State for Rob Dillingham. So you almost have to look at like the bottom 10 teams in the league and look at what they have, which is usually not very good.
Right.
Benny, anything else you want to touch on tonight? I'll kind of give you the floor. Anything else pop out to you? Where can people find you? Pack Mentality just says, and they're then going to draw up more elbow J's for Rudy. I mean, maybe.
There we go.
Can you imagine how much Rudy is going to touch the ball if Jaden and Kyle are on the court?
He's going to be in heaven, man. That three's coming. It's coming, man. I'm telling you. I see it.
This would have been the perfect night for it. Just shoot like 5 of them in the third quarter. What's the
Yeah,
worst
why
that could
not?
happen?
Ah, dang it, man. But the NBA had to suspend him. That was
Just had to get that flagrant.
yeah.
Benny, anything else on your mind? Where can people find you? Anything coming out at Canis in the near future?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't done too much as of late. Just kind of gamers, some roundtable stuff. We did one for KG recently.
Yeah.
Obviously, come back, really awesome stuff. Otherwise, yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I think I forgot to mention that last night, but sometimes I just like posting on both because it's still fun. That's still kicking. So it's just Benny _Hughes for that one. But I guess just one. I mean, I feel like I kind of steered the trade direction. I guess I just want to know like. Did you have like a path that you were leaning towards in terms of like, when you're framing your mind for the deadline of like any players or archetypes or anything like that?
So I've been over the last couple of weeks, I've been on the big train, like
Yeah.
just a change of pace, like another stretch 5 that's pretty beefy. Your Jock Landells, your Brooke Lopez, like those type of players that are just, they're not going to like disrupt the culture, but they could at least give something different, right?
Mhm.
Like if Rudy's not a good matchup, you just have something else you can go to.
Mhm.
But like, I'm not gonna lie, the Johan was intriguing enough where I would wait a couple weeks before I
Sure.
would do that trade. Like, I think
Mhm.
if you're gonna trade for Kyle or Brooke or Jock, like those guys are gonna be there at the first week of February. I don't think anyone's like busting down the door to get Brooke Lopez right now. I don't know if Johan's like just good, if he's just fine, that probably fills that need. And then I'm with you. Like, I do
Mhm.
think if they have that change of pace big, which Johan can't shoot threes necessarily, but like
Right.
the athleticism, the speed, the kind of like physicality he can play with, I think is a big enough change from Rudy to where you could do some different things. But yeah, if Johan's good, I'd say probably don't need the backup big. I agree with you. Backup guard.
Mhm.
Ant's going to play 42 minutes in the
Right.
playoffs, and not Rob, and Dante is going to play like 38. So you
Right.
have 20 minutes between Mike and Bones already. Like, that's kind of negligible in my mind. So then it is, I agree with you, like another dude that can just defend and get some points off the bench.
Yep.
When if Bones doesn't have it and Jalen's in a slump, you just have another option you can go to that
Yep.
isn't TJ at this specific moment, which Pack Mentality says he loves Grimes. Cole, I also thank God KD didn't want to come to Minnesota.
Mhm.
I don't like that dude. I
Yep.
mean, here's the thing. Selfishly, as someone that gets to cover this team, being able to talk to Kevin Durant multiple times a month, I think would be awesome. So I'm never going to say I wish he didn't or did come, but I do think this team is better currently constructed than if they would have traded Dante and
Yep.
Gobert for KD. I'm
Yep.
assuming you're kind of in the same boat.
Oh yeah. And again, I am quite possibly the biggest Dante DiVincenzo fan there is. So even when the Kobe White stuff was kicking up, I'm like, guys, I don't want to do this strictly for that reason. Oh yeah. And then did you see the Wemby flop? I just saw that one too. I haven't seen that one.
I
I'm
did
gonna go
not see the Wemby
right
flop
now.
yet.
I'm gonna go check that one out. But also for the Grimes thing, I was on the Grimes bandwagon, the train, all throughout his Knicks days, and then I sold my stock right, like pretty much right before he got traded. Literally the worst time to sell Quentin Grimes. Right before he just started going nuts, obviously, I guess he was hurt a little bit for Dallas and then came to Philly, but sold it
Yeah.
just like a year too early. But I if you'll let me back on, I am very much on that Grimes train. He would be really cool.
I
Obviously
don't think there's a ton of people on Grimes Island right now. I
Yep.
think you could probably get a pretty nice condo
Okay.
still.
I'll take it. I'll take it, man. He goes back to like kind of a mixture of what he was last year for Philly and back his Knicks days when he was more the defender. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. I guess they dragged that out so crazily of the qualifying offer thing that I think in my head I didn't even realize that he didn't make all that much. And obviously expiring deal, so he'd be pretty much a true rental most likely, depending on what his next contract would be. But Also, he's not really lighting it up over there with the emergence of Edgecombe. So you never know. But I would be on that train for sure, the Quentin Grimes one.
Yeah. And just my last thought, like I do think whoever they get is just a rental. Like I don't think they're if they're getting off the rob, they're probably looking at bringing a guy for the rest of the season so they can make a run and then just reset afterwards, which, if that's irresponsible asset management, I think you could argue that of like maybe wait until the off season and make a big swing. But then again, I mean, this Wolves team, they just beat the Spurs and they just beat the brakes off the Bucks. So they might just be really good when they want to be, and they decide mid-January that they want to be good. So who knows?
Yeah, for sure. One last name for you, Jay Huff. That was the one that came to my head when I was thinking back up big when you were talking about that.
Jay Huff would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's not signed long-term either, is he?
I don't think so. He had like a weird they had a weird contract in Indiana. I didn't see him on this list, but I know he's not making all too much. So
I'm not gonna sort through 300 players to find Jay Huff. I will take.
Look, that's fine. That's just the first guy that popped in my head when you were talking about backup big of like short term. I was like,
Jay Huff would fit. Like that would fit the mold.
Yeah.
For anyone that is listening and didn't catch the beginning of the podcast, this does get posted over on YouTube and X as soon as we are done recording here. If you can wait until tomorrow morning and would like to listen to it in an audio format, it does get released at 7 a.m. That would be July 14th. Anywhere you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all of the other lesser known ones, I guess. And we will be back after the Houston game chatting up some more Wolves, hopefully another win. Like if they go out and they beat Houston, I think then we can start to shift our opinion back to maybe they are just the 2 seed in the West. And that's just how it's going to be. But until then, Benny, thanks man for coming on. I always appreciate you.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's always a blast, man.